My office is in Silicon Valley, but I am terrible with technology, hence the hesitation. That's my first confession. My second confession is that I love to eat. I eat everything in sight except pork and alcohol. But if you mix the bacon into the ice cream, I don't know, I'll have to have that conversation with God. So Muslims fast in the 9th lunar month of the Islamic calendar. It's called Ramadan. There are exceptions to fasting, like travel, menstruation, pregnancy. I had travel and menstruation last year, no pregnancy. So I skipped a few, and I have to make them up a week before Ramadan starts. All this to say that my last intake of food was at 4 a.m. I have had orange juice and a kebab, because 4 a.m. is really way too early to be thinking, even for someone who loves food. At some point in my remarks, if I get hangry, now you know why. Those are my confessions. So, my mom came to the United States in 1977. When people ask me what my nationality is, I say American, because I was born and raised here. When people ask me, no, really, where did you come from? I say Los Angeles, because I was born in a hospital in El Monte. And if the people who ask me those questions can figure out the English language as they proceed in their racist inquiry, it eventually gets to, no, where did your parents come from? To which I say Pakistan. Thank you so much for asking. Where did your parents come from? Please tell me about your immigration journey, because we are all standing on stolen land. So my mom moved to the United States in the 70s. She had a master's degree in chemistry, and she moved by herself. Her concern was that if she stayed in Pakistan, where her family was, and her father had recently passed away, that as a woman in her mid-20s, she would get married. And if she got married, those of you who have South Asian friends or are South Asian, you'll know, it's like 6 parties, sometimes it's 8 parties, it's a lot of clothing and a lot of jewelry. In short, it's really expensive and can be very burdensome on families. And she thought, my family supported me in pursuing an education. I'm not common in my community right now, and my family needs my support. So let me put this master's in chemistry to work and move to the United States to pursue the American dream. Get a job, have it pay well, and send money back home. She did that for 5 years by herself as a young, single Pakistani woman in New York City in the 1970s, an immigrant who came by herself. She says at that time, immigration policy was not racist targeting South Asians. That's not to say it wasn't racist targeting others. It was. But for her, she got her paperwork so easily, she didn't even know what it was. The way she explains it now in her 60s is that they handed her her green card at the airport. She didn't ask for it, she didn't know what it was, she just got her green card. She traveled back and forth without fear of being documented or undocumented, or whether or not she'd be able to enter the country. That was her experience. Fast forward to the early 80s, and she meets my dad. She gets married, moves to California, and maybe you're not expecting this at this point in the story based on what I've told you about her. She stops working and commits her life to being a full-time mother for myself and my younger brother. She cooks, she cleans, she goes to PTA meetings, she's involved. She takes us everywhere. Some years she would complain that it felt like she was our chauffeur, but she did it lovingly. My dad lost his job at least twice when I was growing up. And we'd ask her, Mom, you've got an education. Why don't you want to go back to work? And she says, because this is the life path I have chosen. I'm growing up, and I talk a lot. I mean, you can tell right now that I talk a lot. I have not had food since 4 a.m., and you know what I had at 4 a.m. And before that, I had ice cream, because that's how life should work. And yet, here I am running my mouth. So that's what I was doing as a kid. And in my community, the options were doctor, engineer, or business person. The idea was, if I wanted my parents to be proud of me, if I wanted to make good money, and if I wanted to live the model minority lifestyle, I had to be a doctor, an engineer, or a business person. But I talk a lot. So they made an exception. And they were like, you should be a lawyer. Lawyers are liars. They talk all the time in the courtroom. All they do is talk, and then they charge people so much money for it. You should be a lawyer. It's not a really glamorous story. I grew up with all of those jokes about my career. But I ended up in law school. I graduated from law school in 2009. K through JD. My mom stayed at home, cooked and fed us full time. When I moved out to go to law school, she would, the kebabs I ate this morning? I'm in my 30s. She made them. They are pre-fried and then frozen and then stored in my freezer. And she's been doing that for the last 11 years that I've been away from home. I graduated from law school in 2009, and I applied for a variety of jobs. I landed at CAIR, the Council on American-Islamic Relations, the nation's largest American Muslim civil rights group. Before I landed there, I thought, looking like this, sounding the way I do, running my mouth as much as I do, I may be able to defy stereotypes and break people's perceptions of me from other nonprofit organizations. That what I really just wanted to do was make my community a better place, use my lawyering as lying skills. We don't lie. We are not allowed to lie. I would lose my law license if I got caught lying. Let me just be clear, I am not lying on this stage. All of this is true. I really didn't cook those kebabs myself. I thought I could make a difference outside of my community. But the reality is, growing up in the United States in the 80s and 90s, being 17 when 9/11 happened, being a law graduate when President Obama was force-feeding people at Guantanamo Bay and sending informants into my mosque, it made sense for me to work at the Council on American-Islamic Relations. In my work there, I provide legal services to people who are facing discrimination. What kinds of discrimination do Muslims face today? 7 years as a lawyer during the Obama administration. 6 months since Trump's, I'm so sorry, I've ruined the day, I've said his name. Since 45's election. The kinds of discrimination that Muslims face include school bullying. In California, 55% of Muslim students in California public schools report experiencing some type of bias-based bullying. Some of you may be following the controversy coming out of San Ramon this week, where a student allegedly made a racist video claiming that if he was elected to student government, he would save the student body from ISIS. That got him elected to office, allegedly, because I'm a lawyer and I have to be careful about these words. Law enforcement agents frequently visit members of my community to ask them, are you Muslim? What mosque do you go to? Who is your religious leader? Tell us how you feel about the elections. The day that Comey got fired, and let's be real, as much as we care about Russia, for someone that heads an agency that has long targeted the Japanese community, communists, and so many others, karma comes back around, and you get fired in the funniest of ways imaginable. You can throw chocolate at me now. That's okay. The day that he got fired, 2 members of my community right here in the Bay Area were visited at home and asked questions about their community, their association, their friends. That's what I'm operating under. So I come to CAIR. November 8th, many of us were surprised. How many of you stayed up late watching the results? How many of you binge ate some ice cream afterwards? I did, for the next week. As much as I had experienced racism, discrimination, school bullying, FBI surveillance, and so many other things under the Obama administration, what the 2016 election made real for me and my community was that we weren't going to sugarcoat racism in America anymore. That racism was now getting people elected to office. That promises to build a wall when net immigration from Mexico is currently 0 because enough people are leaving. Wouldn't you leave if you had somewhere to go? I don't have anywhere to go. I told you where I was born, El Monte. It's not that far. I guess I could go to El Monte. right? That's what happens. January 20th, it becomes like an even bigger living nightmare. The inauguration. January 21st, how many of you were at a women's march? Okay. We asked ourselves, how do we make this moment a movement? This will be the only time in the next 4 years that you will hear me thank our racist, homophobic, misogynist, Islamophobic president. He gave us our movement. He lit a, well, no. We gave us our movement. He lit the fire under us. But let me thank him for helping so many first-time protesters come out, for angering us, for letting us eat ice cream, for helping us build community, and really for being so incompetent that he can't even be fully malevolent, as they say. January 27th, he signs the Muslim ban executive orders. Effective immediately. No refugees for 120 days. No Syrian refugees indefinitely. No immigration, visits, or anything else from Iraq, Iran, Syria, Somalia, Libya, Sudan, and Yemen. Countries that our country has been bombing directly and indirectly for decades. There aren't open embassies in some of these countries. We have starved not only their leaders, but their children and families. We have kept medicine from going into these countries, and now we're saying, you're not welcome here anymore. Despite the fact that government data says your country of citizenship is not a reliable indicator of violent extremism. We see that every day. Violence happens from people in uniform, let's be real, and out of uniform. Violence targets so many different parts of our community and comes from so many places. And still, 45 says you can't come to America. Here's the thing. You know how this story ends. We're winning this fight. How many of you were at an airport protest? Okay. How many of you know someone connected to a lawsuit? Good. I counted. It's like something over, he has been sued over 50 times. The Muslim ban lawsuits are now in the several dozen. I'm biased because I'm a lawyer, but there has never really been a sexier time to be a lawyer. And I mean sexy in all of the comprehensive ways we should be talking about it as feminists. Smart, we have jobs, we're busy, and we're getting stuff done and winning. Okay? So you know about the protests. You know about the lawsuits. You know about the individual people who have come forward bravely to challenge the Muslim ban. But I started with my mom, who had her master's degree in chemistry and quit her job to take care of us. And whenever I'd ask her why, she would say, this is my commitment. This is my decision. I am making my own choices. I'm doing this because I want to do this. And part of that service for her was raising me, an activist young person. And what did I tell you about one of my favorite things to do? I love to eat. Imagine her job of feeding me. Now, one of my favorite things about the airport protests was, guess what? Who was there? Raise your hands again. Did anyone eat at an airport protest? A couple of you. The food was amazing. I am not joking. There was pizza, which is like predictable. Donuts, also predictable. The salads, the pastas, the drinks, and the desserts. What's a protest without dessert? A funder I spoke to recently agreed that nourishment is a key part of the resistance. And so for me, the unsung heroes in the fight against the Muslim ban were the folks who were feeding us from behind the scenes. They weren't on TV, they weren't leading rally chants. They were saying, I've chosen to nourish the resistance in this way. I share this not to say that you need to follow my mom's path. Clearly, I have not. I'm still eating her frozen kebabs. Instead, what I learned this year, as a young Muslim American who does work that I do, but who for so long saw my mom's path as less, or substandard or not feminist is that everyone shows up to the movement with their strengths. And our responsibility as movement leaders, as resistance activists, as feminists, is to broaden the table. It's not that my way is the way to do it or your way is the way to do it. It's that there are so many different ways to do it, but that we need all of us. Because let's be real, 3 a.m. at the airport, if I had skipped lunch and dinner, how was I going to be calling Customs and Border Protection and advocating for my clients? Would I have the words to talk to the reporters? Would I have the brain capacity to file the lawsuit? I know that we are winning because all of us are participating. And the question that I leave you with, as you leave this conference, is in making these moments a longer, sustained movement, let's ask, what are the different skill sets that all of us bring? And how do we support each other in leveraging every single one to nourish, inflame, and organize the resistance? Thank you.